Welcome to Wholesale Hotline, where we cover everything to do with wholesale real estate. I'm Jamil Damji.
I'm Brent Daniels.
And I am Morby.
And together we cover the most important parts of wholesale real estate.
Lead generation.
Conversion of sellers into contracts.
And dispositions. Guys, remember when you're watching this show, do us a favor and squad up in the comments.
Make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the YouTube channels and in the Facebook group Wholesale Hotline.
Most important, we want to know we're doing a great job for you and helping you build your business. So go give us a review on iTunes and or Spotify.
So squad up and enjoy the show.
Wholesale Hotline number 212. We're talking 418 million. 418 million over 4 years is the NAR settlement. A federal jury found them found that they had conspired to artificially inflate commissions, and NAR decided to settle that for 418 million over the next 4 years. But that is certainly not the biggest impact that that this lawsuit has brought forth. So we brought in an expert. We brought in an expert to tell us right in the streets, right in the front line, what's happening. Right, we've got Jerry Norton here. We've got Pace Morby. We've got Jamil Damji, and we've got Aaron Novello out of Fort Lauderdale, who has been an agent for quite a while, has built an incredible business, and is going to give us the perspective from a real estate agent, a realtor, I assume, right?
Yeah,
Aaron,
that's exactly right.
How this feels in your heart and in your
wait,
mind.
real quick, when you said realtor versus realtor, there's a difference between the two.
As though that means something. So it's interesting. I've been sharing with people that there was a very high degree of probability that the fundamental way we do business would shift and change once I heard about these lawsuits, right? So if you think about this, the last time kind of the industry fundamentally changed at its core was the internet. And that radically changed the value proposition, where previously the value proposition was just access to data. Like imagine a world, guys, where nobody had access to any information about real estate.
That's what it is like in Canada. That's where I'm joining you from today. In Canada, the public doesn't have access to sold data, doesn't have access to anything. They have to work through real estate agents to know anything. You won't know how much your house is worth. You don't know how much the house next door is selling for. None of that.
That's exactly right. So, that was the last time that there was this fundamental pivot, and all of the models changed as a result of it, right? Yep. And this is a fundamental change in the way we do business, right? So there were 5 different rules that were, kind of proposed, because to keep in mind, even though we see all this media and stuff, these haven't actually been like approved yet, right? That's like in July. But there's different rules, right? One of them is you can no longer put compensation in the multiple listing service for a cooperating broker. Okay. So you can no longer advertise that, right? The second rule is they're going to get rid of all of the places in the multiple listing service where that could be placed, because agents are very crafty. They're like investors. Will figure out a loophole and a way around it. So they're just going to wipe that out. So you can't do that, right?
Yep.
The next rule is that you can offer concessions in the multiple listing service. Okay. So that's a way that perhaps you can get to compensation. The next rule is that
Aaron, you're saying you cannot offer concessions anymore?
You can in the multiple listings.
Okay, you can. So you could go, hey, as the seller, I'm going to offer 2% concessions to my broker or to my buyer's agent.
What you would say in the additional terms and conditions is something like, with an agreed upon purchase and sales like offer, the seller is open to offering a concession, and then you be quiet.
Okay. Can't say how much.
Right. So, and then the next rule is that an owner can still offer compensation. They just can't put it in the multiple listing service. Now, I want everybody to be clear. This is the way that commercial real estate has been operating for a very long time. So what would happen is the buyer's agent has to call the listing agent. Let's say it's Jamil, and they're like, hey, what are you offering in compensation? The listing agent. He's like, well, this is what we're offering. Great. Then when they make an LOI, a letter of intent, they include in their letter of intent what they want to be compensated, and it's a negotiation. Okay. And then the fifth rule is that if you work with a buyer, you need a buyer broker's agreement, which is essentially the equivalent of a listing agreement. Now, the only reason, if there are agents that are on this call, which I know that there are, they would never think in a million years to take a listing without a listing agreement. Do you know why? Because it's mandatory. That's why.
You can't. Yeah.
Because you have to. Mm-hmm. So now all of this does is it does the same thing for buyers, that if you're going to work with a buyer, it becomes mandatory that you have to have.
Doesn't that actually benefit the buyer's agents? Because what happens a lot of times, I remember my wife when she was a brand new agent, Aaron, before she learned how to be an agent, like, you know, what you train people. I mean, you're one of the best trainers in the nation for agents. Mm-hmm. My wife would take buyers out 20 times and show them houses at open houses and do all sorts of things. And then somebody would swoop in and steal that buyer from her because my wife went on vacation and couldn't pick up the phone one time for whatever reason. And then they go and sell the house with somebody, or they go buy a house with somebody else, right? That it's crazy to me that is is that going to be a mandatory thing now?
Absolutely mandatory. Provided that there are no changes, you will have to have a buyer broker's agreement signed to work with a buyer. So what that's going to require in terms of like actionable steps is that agents are going to need to list buyers in the same way they list sellers. So in other words, as a dominant listing agent, I did 2,000 transactions in my career. 80% of that business was listings sold. I would have a formal presentation. I would prospect, pre-qualify, go on the appointment. There would be a formal presentation. I would state all of the value that I would be providing. And then I would ask for a particular type of compensation, and perhaps there's some sort of negotiation. And then we come to an agreement and we're done. The same thing is going to be applicable for buyers. Now, here's the part that's interesting about that, is the vast majority of agents are very buyer heavy. 60, 70, 80% of their deals are buy-side deals. So as such, you have a large portion of the population that has never had to give a formal presentation and demonstrate value. So
this is going to elevate agents like no freaking other.
Yeah. So there's two, I think this is net positive for the industry and for consumers. So NAR never had an incentive to have it more difficult to become an agent. In fact, they have the opposite incentive, right? Because they collect dues. So Charlie Munger says you have to be very careful how you incentivize people because it shapes behavior. So if we have an incentive to get dues, guess what? We make the barrier to entry as low as possible. Here's the barrier to entry to become an agent in the United States as of right now. You ready? You need to get a 75 on a test, which is 5 points above a D. You need to pay $1,000 and not be a felon yet. That's the criteria. So as a result, the market, right? Consumers ultimately get what they want. They want a more professional agent. So the market's basically like, the consumers are like, hey, NAR, are you going to fix this? And they're like, nope, we're not going to fix it. So you know what the market does? It fixes it for you. This is just capitalism, because what will happen is it'll weed out anybody who doesn't add value. So the only reason that agents would be kind of concerned about this, two reasons. Knowledge equals confidence, ignorance equals fear. If you're ignorant to what's actually happening, you will be scared. The second reason is because you're afraid it's going to expose the fact that you don't add any value.
Yep.
Yes.
Those are the only two reasons you should be like overly concerned about this, right?
You know, Aaron, one of the things that everyone needs to consider too is the not marketing or not advertising a buyer agent commission is only the MLS. So one of the fears is that agents are going to now advertise their properties on a non-MLS place, and these sites are going to pop up. Maybe some of them get pretty popular, and now the MLS loses some of its integrity because now it's not where it has all data. Now it's going to have limited data, possibly, because now people aren't going to enter that data on the MLS because they can advertise all they want on a non-MLS site.
Hold on. What you're saying is, as a listing agent, I could market my listing and what commissions I'm willing to pay to a buyer's agent off of the MLS?
Correct. Here's the rule. Because I read through that whole thing, right? And the rule is because brokers actually own the listings, not listing agents.
Right.
So on the broker's website, not various different websites. On the broker's website, they can state compensation.
Wow.
So
So what's going to happen to the MLS over time? Like what Jerry's saying, is it
It's
going
going
to
to
lose its-
devalue.
It's going to
Yeah,
devalue
because
it.
think
for
about
sure.
it. If you don't now have all the listings, then you're going to be limited on data for listing data and for comping properties on the buy side, or for showing properties to buyers. You may not have all the data either because it's not all on the MLS anymore.
Yeah, I think with a high degree of probability, what you're saying is accurate, that as time progresses, part of the main value proposition is all the data is in one place. If it starts to get pushed out into other places, then it no longer is as valuable as it was previously.
Well,
I mean,
that's wholesale. I mean,
that
we
is- that is
literally
wholesale.
sell properties off the MLS every single day. Every single day. And people have to know about where to find these opportunities for them to even see the deals that we're putting in front of them. You know what I mean? A lot of the time it's just a personal relationship that we have with buyers that we know are looking for certain properties. It's going to be real interesting when the people that we sell the properties to go to list their properties. Where are they going to put it so that they get the most eyeballs on these flips and probably spend a lot less selling these things.
Aaron, real quick on the buyer's agent side. Okay.
Mhm.
So buyer's agent, this is news to me. This is awesome. I love this. I love learning stuff from you. It's why we love having you on the show and Jerry on the show as guests. You always bring so much value. Buyer's agent has to go and present. They go do a presentation. They get that buyer under a contract. They then can go on the MLS and market themselves as, hey, I have a buyer. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that in order to work with a buyer, now you must have a buyer broker's agreement signed that specifically states what you're going to do for them and what compensation you're going to require and how you're going to get compensated. So like, in other words, it's just like transparency, right? So I believe what'll happen is, as a result of this, is different forms of representation for different forms of compensation.
Yep.
So let's say like Jamil calls me off one of my listings. He's like, yo, I want to see that right now. I'm in town. I'm only in town for like 5 days. I'm a cash buyer. I want to buy it right away. Fine. I'm going to have to go to him. And while I'm sitting in front of the property, I'm be like, yo, here's a one-time buyer broker's agreement for this one property. And if
no.
Yeah,
No.
property specific buyer broker agreements are going to be mandatory.
If you buy this
Absolutely.
one property, here is the fee. Now, maybe that's a flat fee because I haven't had to show him 50 homes and run them around. Maybe it's 10 grand. And I have to explain to Jamil, listen, here's how I'm going to be compensated. One of 3 ways.
This is why a million agents are going to leave the business right
For
here.
sure.
One, the first way we'll get compensated is the seller and the listing agent are going to provide us compensation. Great. The second way I'm going to get compensated is they're going to provide a concession and you can use that towards the professional fee. The third way I'll get compensated is if they don't provide anything, then you'll be responsible for it. Are we clear on what I'm going to do for you? Yes. Are we clear on how I'm going to get compensated? Yes. Do you still want to proceed? Yes. Here's an agreement. I need you to sign it.
So Aaron,
Oh
what I
my
see as a challenge here is, let's look at it from the retail side, right? A retail buyer who typically they're going to be an FHA buyer, VA buyer, whatever that is going to be a low down payment buyer. Even if it's conventional, it's going to be, for the most part, low down payment buyer, right? 5% down. Let's just call it that. Now, if a buyer's agent is sitting in front of the house having to negotiate this fee, their compensation, and the buyer doesn't have the additional 2%, 1%, $10,000, whatever that is, to come up with in order to make this, because normally they'd be folding that money into their loan, right? Normally the buyer pays, the buyer's still paying that 3% buyer agent commission, even though it's coming from seller proceeds.
Yes.
It's still the buyer bringing the money to the table at the end of the day, right? And so from the loan and from their down payment and whatnot, that's where the funds are coming from. And so now what's going to end up happening is they're going to have to come up with an idea of how do I come up with this 3% if the seller is not willing to offer compensation.
Yes.
Right.
Now,
And
to that point.
Yep.
So here's what you are correct. Now, I think that there will be, with a super high degree of probability, if I was a betting man, there will be product innovation on the lending side.
Yeah.
There's too much money.
Yeah.
Way too much money.
We're already talking
what I
about
see happening. There's a rule that says like you can't include fees, but what I foresee with a high degree of probability is them being like, yo, we will allow you to pay up to, but not to exceed either a percentage or a flat rate, whichever's lower of a
So
person.
an agent that has a really great lending opportunity or lending arm in their business, right? One of their core relationships with their power team that can find a product that will actually pay for their agency. can go to a buyer and say, you don't have to pay for me. The lender that I will bring to the table will pay for me. There's a marketing. Okay, great. Got
if
it.
that product innovation happens. So this is like this is conjecture. Like we're getting
Jerry,
that's
we're
a-
gonna create
that's
this
an if.
product, bro. Let's go create a lending product.
For sure.
Yeah, I want to be a partner. Now, the at the same time, Jamil, what's more likely that's going to happen as a dominant listing agent, okay? Because most of the people that are like, we think that we're thinking beings that feel when we're really feeling beings that think.
Yes.
So a lot of the response to this is like highly, highly emotional. But for dominant listing agents, we've been having this conversation forever with regards to compensation, that it's actually a tool that we use to market the property. So here's what that would sound like. Is let's say we come to an agreement, I go over and I present to you, and I give you different packages, again, different forms of representation for different forms of compensation. We have let's say, Pace wants to list his home. I go over and I give him a presentation. I'm like, look, Pace, there's 3 different ways that we can represent you. I'm going to go over the 3, whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. The first one is the silver package. And that's basic stuff. You know what I mean? Like you get some photos, you get a video and maybe some like one open house a month until we sell it. Then we have the gold package. Gold package includes everything in silver, but in gold, you also get Matterport. You also get open houses till we sell it. You also get like some Facebook marketing. You get all this other stuff. Then we have the guaranteed home sale.
Right.
With the guaranteed home sales, everything in gold and silver and gold, except we're going to pay for the appraisal before we put on the market. We're going to pay for the inspection report before we put on the market. We'll give you $1,000 towards anything that you fix at closing. We're going to have it professionally cleaned before we put on the market. We're going to stage it, right? We're going to do all of these things. And that has a particular fee associated with it. And then what you're going to say to them is, look, based on what you're looking to accomplish and why, based on the time frame you'd like to make this move happen in, which one of these options do you think would serve you best? And they're going to be like, well, if you do this right as a professional, they're going to say, well, what do you think, Aaron?
Aaron, have you heard of the company True Parity yet?
No.
So one of the founders of LinkedIn had, for the last couple of years, has been developing a platform called True Parity, where it's going to do exactly what you just said. It's the meritocracy of listings, and it's going to be a place where homeowners will put their property on it, and then listing agents will compete on what they're going to bring to the table, what their compensation is going to be, their experience, how many open houses, all the things to get the listing.
Well, and here's my experience is there's another company that has already done that. And what the consumer doesn't realize is who's competing is mediocre agents.
Yeah.
Right.
That's who's competing.
100%.
So like what I'm aware of as a dominant listing agent, I kick those agents' ass all day long because those agents, like in the absence of value, the only thing you can compete on is price, period.
Right.
So I understand, just like consumers think when they get all of these agents from Zillow, they're getting the best. No, you're not. You're getting on somebody else's team. You're getting like 4 deep down in the roster. You're not getting the guy. You're not getting the gal. You're getting somebody else. So like what I'm aware of is I think that there's a lot of money in this space. That's why you've seen the home lights, the fast experts, the agent prontos push in and take 30% referral fees, and there's still enough money for people to make money. But you can't do high tech without high touch. You just can't. Yeah. And this is too big of a transaction. Because trust me, if Zillow with all their money could figure out a way to push us out, they would have.
Yeah.
Do you know what the consumer said, Jamil? Here's what the consumer said to Zillow. We don't want your buyer program. That's why they went out of business.
Yeah.
Do you know what they said to Open Door? We don't want your shit either. And that's why they got sued for $70,000 for false advertising.
Agreed.
Right? The consumer wants agents. They just don't want to pay us as much. That's what's going on. We also
look, before we go a little bit deeper, let me just set the tone for one more thing, because this question is going to come up a bunch. Yep. But Jonah Corchin, love you, brother. Good to see you. Hopefully Colorado is doing okay for you. His question is, so is it going to be harder or easier to wholesale with agents? I don't want to answer that question right now. I want to answer that question in 20, 30 minutes.
Okay.
Right now, we are going on our first date, Jonah. We're explaining to you why the kiss is going to be so impactful, right? When a girl jumps in your truck, Jonah, and you take her on a date, you don't turn over to her and say, yo, are we going to kiss tonight? No. The kiss comes at the end of the night, bro. The point of the show is to build rapport.
Yeah, I didn't realize we're doing dating advice here.
We're always doing dating advice, Aaron. Come on. You're over there in Fort Lauderdale with all them retirees. You got all the dating advice, I'm sure. So we want to make sure that we
is around that question.
When we give you the answer to this question, and we get to this because everybody in here is wholesaling or fixing and flipping or buying and holding. When we get to the question of, Is it going to be easier or harder to work with real estate agents from an investor standpoint? If I kiss you at the very beginning of the date, it's not that great of a kiss. Okay. We need to build rapport. We need to explain to you the problem and what's going on before you understand the answer entirely. So give us some time. Okay. Let's go on the date. Let's order some hors d'oeuvres. Let's order the main meal. And then we'll see how it goes. And we'll see how this question goes for you, Jonah. Stick with me. Okay?
Jonah just wants dessert. He sits down and he's like, cake.
Cake.
Jonah, we'll see how this unfolds, brother. Yeah. So once we have that conversation about compensation for me, now here's where the skill comes in. Okay. So now, Jamil, now it's time for us to have a conversation with regards to compensation or concessions towards a buyer's agent and the buyer. And I want to go over with you the options that you have, and whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. Okay. Now, before we do that, I want to be clear that the professional fee is one of the tools that we use to market the property. Can I explain to you what I mean? Well, yeah. Let's say that there's 25 homes available for sale in your price point between $900 and $1 million in 5 miles of where we're sitting. 20 of them are offering out a concession or compensation to a buyer's agent and the buyer, and 5 of them are offering out nothing. Now, honestly, as a full-time commission-based salesperson, which properties do you think you'd be more excited about showing and selling?
The ones offering compensation, of course.
And why is that?
Well, because you need to be compensated for the work that you're going to do.
Exactly. And don't you think
You're incentivized?
Don't you think most buyers agents will feel pretty similar to you?
Absolutely.
Well, just by you saying that demonstrates that you recognize the professional fee is in fact a tool that we use to market the property. So
Yes, sir.
in that context, here are the options that we have. Okay. The first option is we offer out nothing. Now, in doing so, as you just described to me, that could end up limiting the exposure. Now, let me ask you, if the goal and objective is to maximize value and do it quickly and efficiently, would we want to limit exposure or would we want to broaden exposure?
You want to broaden exposure as much as possible.
Exactly. Now, you also shared with me too that this move, you want to make it happen in the next 120 days, which means we need to be under contract in the next 60,
Right.
because it usually takes 45 to 60 days to close. Now, the challenge is with this strategy is that it takes much longer. Let me ask you this. If we were still sitting here 120 days from now, what would that mean for you and your family if it wasn't sold?
Well, I think, in knowing the market, if I have higher days on market, it's almost like having a salvage title on a car. It makes my home less valuable. Days on market is basically having a salvage title on a car. So I don't want to rack up days on market. I need to sell this house as much as possible so people don't think there's something wrong with my home.
I agree with you 100%. And just by you saying that lets me know that this first option is not for you. The second option that we have at our disposal is we can offer out a concession of some sort. We are still allowed, with the new rule changes, to offer a concession in the multiple listing service. Now, what I've seen shake out as we're dealing with this real time and this price point is somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000. Now, in doing so, what we're doing is we're giving the buyer money that they can use towards the compensation of their agent or towards their closing costs, which would free up capital towards compensation. The third option is we do what we've been doing for over 100 years, is we provide compensation to the buyer's agent as a percentage of an agreed upon purchase and sales price, which would dramatically increase the exposure and increase the chances we can get top dollar in the quickest amount of time. Now, either one of these options are perfectly fine. Whatever you decide.
So Aaron, you're telling me if I do a flat fee of $10,000 or $12,000, it's going to limit the number of eyeballs that's going to come onto my property because the buyer's agents showing these may not show my property because I'm not offering a 3% commission.
Well,
just in realism, is that what we're saying here?
Yeah, I mean, well, let me ask you a question. Like, what do you like? Let's say we're role playing. I'm like, well, what do you do professionally? And they're like, well, I'm a doctor. It's like, great. Well, would you normally, be willing to work for less money than what you currently earn?
No.
No. And why is that?
Because I'm worth what I'm worth.
Exactly. And don't you think the top agents feel the same way you do?
Absolutely.
You do want to get this home sold, don't you?
Yes, I do.
All right. What do you think we should do then?
Can we offer more than 3%?
Of course we can. Do you see? So this is a skilled sales conversation. And for skilled salespeople, this is no big deal. And what we're seeing, because, with EXP, I have 283 agents in 21 months we've attracted to the company. And what I'm seeing real time is dominant listing agents in the last week. They've already had 4 or 5 of these conversations. And every time they have this conversation with them and they offer compensation. So people thinking, oh yeah, this is just going to disappear off the planet. I'm like, no, bro, you don't understand how business is conducted. You don't understand how we've been transacting for a long time. So if you explain this properly as a listing agent, it's going to be fine. It's not going to be like a thing at all.
Right. Yep.
Thoughts, Jerry, Jamil, Brent.
Yep. Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, so I'm looking at it from, can we talk about the investor perspective yet, Pace, or we got to wait a little longer?
Yeah, I think it's
Let me just hit one thing. I always find it really interesting that people want to hire real estate agents and they're not good salespeople to sell their biggest asset.
Agreed.
Right? Like that is a presentation. That is skills. That is confidence that is born from skills. That is something that is learned. And the people that have skills in this business are fine. But the fact is, half the agents don't have skills. They don't. They walk in, they get their license.
They're
they hope they can
part-time
work with a couple
hairdressers,
people.
Brent.
Yeah,
You know, they're
listen,
not real estate agents.
I looked up at NAR. The average agent is a 60-year-old white woman.
Yeah. And the average agent in the United States makes $72,000 a year. A manager at Taco Bell makes 70.
Sure. The average agent in Arizona makes less than $50,000 a year, and the people that panhandle on the side of the freeways make $55,000.
Great. So, I mean, what I'm aware of is like, again, in the absence of value, the only thing you compete on price. What I've been telling people, okay, we all travel. We go on planes, right?
Yep.
Everybody has a choice.
Yep.
You can sit in the back on Spirit and you pay a certain fee and you get a certain experience. You can get some extra leg room and that's a little more, or you can sit up front. And you know what I've been telling all the agents been freaking out? Let me ask you a question. When you go on a plane, is first class ever empty?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Even though they got all these choices in the back, right? Why? Because some people are willing to pay more to have convenience and comfort and snacks and like
And
pillows.
ironically,
It
those
smells
are
like farts back there.
Ironically, it's the clientele that you want to work with are the people also that are paying the money, right? They are a higher level person. They sacrificed. They went through everything they went through. They maybe are a professional, sales professional themselves. They want to pay for the experience. They want to pay for that status. They don't want to sit back there. They understand what it's like. They understand the service that they're going to get. In fact, when somebody tries to undercharge me on a renovation or anything in my life, I go,
Puts you back a little.
nope.
Yep.
Sorry, we're not going to work together. Now, real fast, Justin Bozak, what I want to tell you and everybody else, I love working with real estate agents, especially the ones that are like Aaron or the ones that are trained by Aaron. We all understand that there's a lot of agents out there that are knuckleheads, but I think that it is the low barrier to entry that has caused that for the most part. It has nothing to do with being an agent. It has to do with the way that agents come into the business. It really is a low barrier of entry. There's no sales skills in real estate school.
No,
And their broker,
and truthfully, I mean, you've asked me before, which I thought was interesting. You're like, why do you think there's animosity between agents and like investors? And I think that we can learn things from each other. Most agents can learn from you how to market because they're like myopic and where they look for leads. But a lot of your guys can learn from me how to sell things, like what to say, how to say. Because you know what the barrier to entry to be an agent is? I mean, a wholesaler. Nothing.
Yeah.
There's no barrier at all. There is no test. There's no nothing. And what's wild is what I see, and I even sent it to Pace. I was like, yo, is this guy part of you, what you're doing? Because like there's shit talking on both sides. Like there's no need for that. Like we're both professionals. We're both trying to like help people, trying to serve them. Now, do we have the same avatar sometimes? Who's somebody who's like really wants to sell? Yeah. But like what I'm aware of is only 5% of the time, 10% of the time do they take your offers. Yep. The other 95% of the time, they need me.
Yep.
So it's like we should like
collaborate,
learn from each other.
Yeah, Aaron sends me a text the other day, and it's some guy on TikTok that just literally went out of his way to put a whole series together of how he's bashing real estate agents, and he's going out of his way, almost being manipulative and creating friction for the agent to trip up, stumble, etc., just so he can put it online. And Aaron goes, please tell me this guy's not in your community. My immediate gut reaction was, absolutely, that's not how our people operate. And thank goodness I was right, because I actually went to Sarabi on the team. I was like, Sarabi, please tell me that this person is nowhere in our community that is willing to bash an agent like this. And she's like, nope. They went back to him in the CRM, and he made a comment. And his comment to the sales guy for the team was, Pace isn't aggressive enough. That was his comment to Sarabi. Pace is not aggressive enough. I'm like, bro, I just want to collaborate with people. I want to be friends with people. It's way more fun, And I love working with agents. I love this conversation. Agents, now, before we get into the investor side, Do we believe now, Jerry, you told me the other day, 1 million agents are going to leave the business over the next couple of years. Do we believe that the reason they're leaving is because they're uneducated on what Aaron just said, which is all you have to do is learn how to proposition and learn how to sell and how to position yourself as a person of value. Therefore, they're like, oh, well, this is gone. I have to now learn a new skill. Bye. I'm going to go get a job.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was one analyst prediction, was that 1 million of the 1.5 are going to exit the industry. Certainly there's going to be a lot that do, for the very reason that Aaron explained. If they're used to just getting 3% and they're entitled to it, and they don't adapt to a sales presentation and showing value, it's just going to be too much friction. Like you mentioned, Pace, the other day, a lot of people, it just takes a little bit of friction and they exit the industry.
Yeah.
And if you think about, the recent study that half of all licensed agents have done 1 or 0 transactions in the past year, those agents are probably all going to leave because it's enough friction to just make them go away. But what that means is, it means the remaining agents, this is the opportunity of a lifetime to kill it as an agent.
Agreed.
Because now you've got so much less competition. It's not your sister-in-law that's getting the listing anymore because she's gone. Yeah. So this is just a huge opportunity for I think we're going to see the haves and have-nots. The 20% of top agents are going to dominate, and they're going to make so much more money, and the bottom 80% are going to fall out the bottom.
I want to add to that, Jerry. I think that with respect to the way that agents are working, it's going to elevate the listing agent even farther, because there's going to be a lot of people who are going to take this as an opportunity to just skirt right past the buyer's agent, which is something that look, at the end of the day, as an investor, I go directly to the listing agent anyways, because I want proximity to the deal. I want proximity to the seller. I want information. I want to incentivize the listing agent as much as I agree as I can. And if now I don't have to deal with this pesky buyer's agent that's not going to do what I need them to do, that's not going to communicate the way I want them to communicate, I can go directly to my listing agent. I can get that listing agent to do what I want them to do. And we don't even have to worry about this 3% conversation anymore. It doesn't even become an issue for the seller. It doesn't become an issue for the listing agent. And we can get a deal done even quicker.
Yeah. So I think that people, I listed over 100 homes a year for like 10 years in a row. And people have been trying to come directly to me. Like from 2020, I had people delivering pies to my office, like the wildest, most outlandish things. Now, here's what I find interesting in that as an agent. It puts us in a very precarious situation.
Of course it does.
So in any other business,
Mm-hmm.
if I tried to give you money to get my way, what is that called? Tell me.
That's bribing.
Bribe. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
So what I'm aware of is it puts agents in this very precarious situation.
There'll have to be some form of limited dual agency where agency relationships start to unravel a little bit. And even though you're helping me in the transaction, I'm still maybe coming in unrepresented in some or in a limited capacity, so that you can still have fiduciary responsibilities to your seller.
Yeah. And the challenge is because what I'm aware of is it takes like 20 years to build a reputation and one poor decision to screw it up. So the challenge is to be like, because the question is, hey, what is it going to take? I'm not supposed to tell you that. Hey, if I grease the wheels, can you make it happen? It's not supposed to happen that way, even though it does. So what I'm aware of is just from an agent's perspective, people have been trying to come to me forever, and it wouldn't matter. I'd be like, yo, present your offer and whatever's on the table, and you're going to pick the one that's the best with the best terms and conditions. I would also tell the seller, hey, just so you know, we represent 2 of the offers. There's 3 other offers on the table. I do not want you to have that influence your decision. We're going to go with the one that has the best terms and conditions for you. That's what you would want me to do for your seller, right? If you were selling your home. So I do think, I don't think it would.
But Aaron, that doesn't mean we're not going to still create an ethical competitive advantage, because think about it. As an investor, I want to create some sort of an advantage in the marketplace. If I go directly to a listing agent, and Jamil does this too, we call it the double dip. I offer buyer side to the listing agent. Now they're essentially doubling their commission. Nothing unethical about this. Now, if they go on their end and do unethical stuff to get my offer accepted, that's on them. I'm just offering up the buyer side commission.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. I just know that the flesh is weak.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's the same conversation we have where if your listing says no compensation from the seller versus compensation, and your sales pitch is, hey, if we don't put in our listing that we're offering compensation, we're going to have less agents show our property. It's the same thing. It's just reverse. So now
Well,
What
yeah,
I
and
can
now
do
when
is-
you make the offer though, it's like you can offer compensation and then maybe offer a bigger compensation, which I understand. At the same time, as an agent, what everybody needs to know and understand, that should not dictate whose offer gets accepted.
Sure.
What should
Yeah.
dictate whose offer gets accepted is what's the best terms and conditions for the owner.
Correct.
And if you explain it, because I've done this, look, just so you know, we have more than one offer on the table. I do represent the buyer on this side. I don't want that to influence. You know what a seller said to me? Which one are you going to make more money on? I was like, well, the one that great. I want you to do that one. Great. The problem is when you don't say anything. That's the problem.
Right.
The problem is lack of transparency.
Can buyer's agents negotiate their commission with the seller?
Yeah, of course.
Mhm.
They could
So
do like an
if
LOI.
it's not
It's like,
selling, I could, as a buyer's agent, I could just go in and negotiate 7%, 10%.
Yeah.
what you would do is I imagine is because once they have representation as a listing, like you're not supposed to talk to them. You know what I mean? So what would like the buyer's agent is supposed to talk to a client, or somebody who's under contract, right?
Yeah.
So what would happen is you would, just like in commercial, make a letter of intent.
Right.
Where you would say, hey, this is our offer and this is the compensation I would like. And it becomes part of the negotiation. So here's what I do think.
Can the buyer's agent then give some of that commission to their clients for closing costs?
I don't see why they couldn't on the HUD.
They've been able to do it.
They've been able to.
So
Yeah,
you could just
yeah.
negotiate that way.
Yeah. So again, you guys, here's how agents could learn from you. Your brains think creatively. Agents think very myopically, like one way on the HUD. That's it. You are like a million options. So that's super helpful, right? And then I think the agent of the future is the following. One is they educate, they don't defend. What I see is a lot of these posts of defending, like, don't you know what we do? And we work
I
so
know.
hard and you guys are
It's
so crazy.
so salty.
I'm like, guys, stop. You should be educating them on the economics. 65% of our country lives paycheck to paycheck. 27% has a bachelor's degree. Okay. You should be educating them on the economics of the situation and the advantages and disadvantages, and then let them make a decision, right? So don't defend. The other thing I wrote down is the agent of the future is the following. They have these criteria. They are a rock star salesperson, not an order taker, not part-time. They're not like a hairdresser on the side. They are a rock star salesperson. Number two, they think like a business person, not a salesperson. Salespeople are just worried about deals. Business people put deals together. Okay. Number three, they understand media. Because if I'm known as the hyper local expert in my geographic area, you don't think that's going to help me preserve professional fees? 1000%.
Yep.
And number four, they are vertically integrated.
Mhm.
They have more ways of making money than just commissions. So they make commissions. They own some doors or some property. They do syndications. They get equity from the company that they're with, like what I'm with EXP.
Maybe they own a title company.
And they have revenue share opportunities. But here's the thing, the title company thing, like I got a buddy of mine who is an owner in a title company and it hasn't distributed in 12 months. So I want uncorrelated streams of income. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the agent of the future. Because I think the net result of this, net over time, is that net over time, revenue goes down. I don't think there's any doubt of that in some form or fashion. Because if there's a lot of flat rates, because you're going to see an explosion of models. Somebody in your market will run around with any buyer, no matter what the price point is, for $5,000 to do 6 of those a month and make 30 grand. Fine. That's capitalism. So there'll be an explosion of models, but the overall net revenue, I think as time progresses, goes down a little bit. So as a result, as an agent, I need to pivot. Number one, I need to have my own personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I need to be a highly skilled salesperson. Number three, I need to, which I mentioned, understand media. But number four, I need to be vertically integrated. I need to have multiple ways of earning money.
I can just see Sloppy Joe's commercial now. Sloppy Joe, I'll run around town and show you every house with my half my shirt untucked for $5,000. Let's go.
In flip-flops.
I didn't brush my teeth this morning. Come on.
Yeah, dude, it's comical. I remember going on a listing appointment and the lady was like, thanks for being professional. I'm like, why? She's like, the last agent that came in flip-flops and yoga pants. I'm like, okay.
Jerry, you want to give Jonah Corchin his end of the date kiss, or what's up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at it like, okay, one of the most magnificent techniques ever invented was the double dip strategy, where as a buyer, I go directly to the listing agent, unrepresented, offer the buyer side. How is that going to change? Well, now the way I'm looking at it is, if I can go to that listing agent, still come unrepresented, still offer a buyer's agent side to that listing agent, but now I got a little bit more options. I can say to that listing agent, hey, I don't need the seller to pay the buyer side commission like they used to. I can actually pay it. And would you be my buyer representation? Now, if they're allowed to do dual representation, then now that opens that up for me to then have a real competitive advantage, just like before. I think even more so now, because I'm not having the seller participate. Obviously, I got to factor in, if I'm paying the commission now directly, I got to factor that into my number.
For sure.
But it puts me in a very strong position as an investor to offer compensation directly to the listing agent and create a relationship with that agent where now they go to bat for me. They want me to win. They're going to call me when they get other distressed listings. It's going to be even more relationship driven. And it's going to put me in the driver's seat, because if I'm competing against retail and they're asking sellers to pay their compensation and I'm not, I'm going to look so much better to that seller with my offer, where I'm not asking the seller to participate. I'm paying it directly.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think
So
that
there's no attack on dual agency?
well, here's the
There
deal.
will be.
Here's the deal. It's not uniform in all the states. Okay.
Yeah,
so
right.
some states do allow dual agency, others do not. So
Right.
you're gonna have to like shake out like real time. And what'll happen is, because we're all entrepreneurial, we're all smart and hardworking and ambitious, we'll figure it out as it goes. That's what'll happen. Right.
But right now, like, Florida and Texas are two big states that they have non-dual agency. You can't do dual agency. But I'll tell you what, we double dip like crazy in those states because they just do a transaction broker, or, there's other ways around that. Even designated agency, where an agent in the same office will do the listing, will do the buyer side, and then they get a referral. Any of those strategies create that competitive advantage from the investor's point of view. And my goal is repeat business. That's why I love on market so much, because if I get that agent that will call me with their distressed listings, maybe before they're even listed, if that's allowed, pocket listings, or just, having access to those agents that get the distressed listings is a huge advantage. And how do you stand out? Well, to me now, the new way of buyer's agency is going to give me even more opportunity to stand out even more than before.
I agree. And I think a byproduct, what you just said there is very true. So a byproduct, so I was able to take advantage to a very large degree of all the information being in the multiple listing service. So imagine you have, 25 active listings at any time, and you're constantly being bombarded with phone calls. Like, how old is the roof? And, how old is the toilet? And do they have mallards in the back? Like, all of these questions, right? And if everything's in the multiple listing service in terms of compensation, we don't really have to talk that much. Like, make an offer, we're good, right? Well, now as a byproduct of this, relationships are going to become more valuable. Yeah. You see, I could get away with, I was like the Kaiser Soze of real estate. You never saw me in the office, but I was the top agent in the whole damn county. You know what I'm saying? Where here, listing agents are going to have more conversations with people.
Or their assistant, at least, right?
Or their assistant. Somebody's going to have to talk to somebody, and there's going to be way more negotiating. So what Jerry was saying about like relationships becoming more valuable, I think that's very accurate.
Love that. Good question here for you, Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
John Smith says buyers don't need agents. Now, John has been a little bit salty in the side comments. I asked him to be polite.
Yeah.
John was polite, and he said he was sorry. So thank you for that, John.
Yeah.
A lot of people get salty about buyer's agents.
Yeah.
Okay. And they don't think that they bring value. I know. I've watched my wife in real time be a therapist for buyers. It's a massive decision for them. It's the biggest decision of their life, right? And being their therapist, walking them through it, talking them through it, navigating good lenders, bad lenders, people that are going to actually perform on time, good title companies, bad title companies, all of those types of things alone have been valuable. Mm-hmm. Also, a great buyer's agent might have construction background, might have grown up in a family of a contractor that can walk through and negotiate a Binzer. You guys don't call them Benzers in Florida. Do you know what a Binzer is, Aaron?
No.
I don't know what you guys would call them.
It's the buyer inspection notice to seller. It's like it's what we tell our seller right before contingencies are removed. All the things we want them to do, all the corrections, if we're going to cancel all that. Well, not cancel, but it lets the seller know what needs to happen for the deal to go forward.
Got it.
Okay, so my wife obviously understands. She represents me as a fix and flipper. She understands Binzers. I was a general contractor for 10 years. Her father was a framer for 30 years before she became an agent. And so here's my wife right here. She says retail buyers do need agents.
They
The
do.
retail buyers don't have a clue about real estate. They
think-
don't understand the process and how big those transactions are. How many freaking moving parts are in a real estate transaction? Appraisals, walkthroughs. Your lender has to be giving updates. And what happens if the lender misses a deadline? Your buyer's agents, when they're starting out, are basically a transaction coordinator, a pseudo escrow officer, a therapist, a contractor, like
An accountant, a financial
accountant,
analyst, all the things.
financial analyst. They also have great contractors at their disposal and great relationships to do the things, right? They are the plug for a retail buyer. I cannot imagine a brand new retail buyer buying a house on their own with no experience. Maybe a retail buyer that came from a family of real estate agents. Maybe a retail buyer that came from a family of contractors would walk in and say, I don't need a real estate agent. However, 99.9%, look at my wife. She says timelines, contingencies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's so many more things. If you guys, in fact, John Smith, I'll bet you go spend a day with a high performing buyer's agent. And if you don't see their value by the end of the day, I'll pay you $10,000.
Let's go. Hey, and here's what I'm aware of. What I wrote down as you were talking is like part of being mature in business is having awareness. It's an awareness that not everybody knows what I know. Right? Like everybody in this group is like real estate focused and like thinking about that. Like, do you realize 65% of the population lives paycheck to paycheck, guys?
Right.
That's the environment we live in. 65% of them are towards the scale of not being healthy physically. Like we operate under the assumption that everybody knows the things that we do and we don't. And what I'm aware of is people say the same thing to me. You call a FSBO, they say the same thing about a listing agent. I don't need you. Well, do you know that 93% of all homes in the United States are sold with an agent involved? Why is that? Why? Anybody want to tell me? Do you know that flat fee listings have been around since the internet? And you would think that would put listing agents out of business. Guess what? It hasn't.
Nope.
No, but
Because it's not that easy.
But Laura is right that investors do not need the buyer's agent. And you're going to see investors either waiving those buyer's agent commissions or offering them directly to the listing agent. You're going to see that happen big time because we're so comfortable transacting.
Correct.
That we don't need that buyer's agent in the transaction.
I agree with that. What you will have to do though is pay for access because a dominant listing agent will be like, Jerry, you want access? You got to show me the money. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how that's going to work. So you have a competitive advantage, but they have the competitive advantage because they have access to it. So imagine a dominant listing agent who has off-market listings. That's like, hey, you want to have access to these wonderful beauties over here? I need you to sign a buyer broker's agreement, and here's what I'm going to get compensated on all buy sides. And here's what I know: investors who are smart will do that all day long.
Totally, that's
because
what's
they're paying for
happen.
access.
Yeah, that's totally what's going to happen. Yeah,
Yeah.
But coming with buyer representation, I think we're going to see that go away from the investors' perspective. Coming to make offers, investors are going to be
Okay. Can I just ask a question? Honestly, is that a real thing? I know the double dip strategy. I get that. I get that side. Are there real estate investors that are truly going to a buyer's agent and saying, will you please represent me on an offer to this agent?
Some do because they don't have here. Pace. This is what teaching direct to agent for, Jerry will tell you this as well. When you're brand new at doing what we do, right? It gets a little bit intimidating when you're working with a listing agent who's going to
you mean as a first timer, you need some help? Is that what you mean?
It does. It gets intimidated. They get intimidated by going directly to the listing agent because the listing agent's hammering them with questions. Meanwhile, when they're doing their agent outreach and they're talking to agents and they find this brand new buyer's agent who doesn't do any business, but they're hungry, they say to them, hey, tell me what you're doing. Well, I'm an investor. I'm brand new. I'm trying to wholesale. Okay, explain it to me. Hey, I'll make offers for you. And then that lazy wholesaler will work with that lazy agent to go write terrible offers to people that will never get accepted. That's what happens.
Here's a question. Are there legitimate wholesalers out there, real estate investors that are using buyer's agents beyond 2 or 3 of their first transactions?
Yes. So for me,
I need to meet these knuckleheads.
With Monique, well, it's me. Hey, look, with me,
What?
Monique Walker she represents me on every offer because she
She's
works
going
with
to sellers direct on like expired listings.
Sellers direct on expired listings, and she says to the sellers, "Hey, I'm not here to list your property, and I'm not here to represent you."
In that situation, definitely understand the buyer's agent side representing you. Totally get that.
Yep.
What I'm talking about is it's a listed property with a listing agent. You would never, who you are.
No, I would never go through a buyer's agent
to go to a listing agent.
Absolutely not.
Because Pace, if you think about it, if a hot property comes out and there's 10 offers and 9 of those offers are through buyer's agents, then you have no competitive advantage other than price. That's it. You got no competitive advantage. Whereas if you don't have that buyer representation and you're coming forward to the listing agent, you now have a competitive advantage because you don't need that buyer's representation.
Okay, I've never used a buyer's agent one time other than buying my own home retail.
Yep.
So you guys made a couple of comments. I'm like, hold on, I don't know anybody in our communities that are actually doing that thing. So you kind of paused me for a second. Glad we straightened that out. Let's talk about real estate investors, wholesalers. How does the NAR decision to settle and go down this path, how does this impact, whether it's good, bad, indifferent? How does it impact the average wholesaler, investor, buy and holder out there in the market?
Well, I'll start. Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, I just say my opinion is it's going to put the investor in the driver's seat and it's going to hurt the buyer, a retail buyer.
Yep.
Because again, as an investor, if you're not needing that buyer representation, that's now up for grabs. You can now offer that as compensation or not offer it, and the seller doesn't have to pay it now, which means we're gonna be even more powerful in the marketplace up against retail buyers. Retail buyers now are going to compete with investors who either don't.
Oh, I did not even think about that, Jerry. It's so interesting.
And there may be a window of time before there's product innovation where that's the case.
Yep.
But if there ends up being product,
so for the first little while, it's going to be it's going to benefit wholesalers and investors tremendously until the innovation happens, when that starts to kind of level out. But I think for the first year, it's going to be a field day for us.
Yeah. So you could come up with a new name for the new strategy, and then for 6 or 8 months before there's product innovation, you dominate that strategy.
Yeah, it's called the gnarly offer.
There you go, the gnarly. We just made it up. And then once the product innovation hits, then you'll have to pivot.
The pun was coming.
I was waiting for Jamil to drop a pun, dude.
Yeah.
No, but think about it. You know,
Hey, this is Jamil Damji calling from Gnarly Offers. Just wanted to
It sounds real. It sounds legit.
Yeah, but think about it as
Matt
an
Odell,
investor.
thank you, Matt. Matt just dropped us $20 for some sushi fun.
Hey,
When I get to hang out with Aaron Novella for the first time in Florida, hopefully this year I'll buy him some $20 sushi.
Let's go.
Aaron, don't go with paste to Naboo though. Is it Naboo paste?
Nobu.
It's called Nobu. He actually, we took him on a double date. I said, let's go to Nobu. You said you like
nah,
sushi.
boo.
I always pay for Nobu unless it's Jamil. If it's Jamil and I'll usually let Jamil drop the money on Nobu. Freaking Jerry sneaks to go pay the bill.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't find out for 4 months later that it was $4,000 for 4 people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We don't, by the way, we're Mormons, so we don't drink. I don't know how we got to $4,000.
That's a lot of fish.
That's a lot of fish.
I've had a $7,000 bill on Eric's birthday. It was
it was in
$7,000.
Atlanta, Georgia. And I
Yeah.
was planning on paying for that. Jamil was a little bit tipsy, so he paid for it. Thank you.
That's the advantage of being Mormon.
That's the advantage of being Mormon, bro.
after that paste, my kids had mac and cheese for 3 weeks.
Yeah, you had to go to Costco for a little while, save some money.
Jerry, Aaron, what about the listing side? When our buyers or we're flipping properties, how do we make sure that we sell our properties fast for top dollar?
Offer compensation.
Offer compensation.
Yeah, don't try to get into your head that you can not do that and that's going to work.
Right?
A very small degree of probability. That's foolish.
I think people also have to understand this is market dependent.
Yeah.
Go into a buyer's market and see how this works. Not offering buyer broker.
Right.
I
So
think
I think that our sentiment is based on current conditions, but I saw
Correct.
listed in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Me
where
too.
You couldn't give stuff away, bro. You mean to tell me that when we had 23,000 homes for sale in the market in our county, that somebody
Yep.
wouldn't give a 10% professional fee to try to sell that thing? Hell yeah.
For real.
We were.
What
For
I was
real.
doing is I would take expired listings, lower the price by $100,000, raise the commission, and sell it.
Yep.
So yeah, this is market driven. So I think for those that are trying to move inventory, don't try to listen to all the TikToks and all these nonsense people being like, oh, you don't have to offer out anything. I'm like, great, see how that works out. Because it won't.
Aaron, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What does this do to the? Okay, so we understand that there's good agents. There's the agents who aren't doing their jobs. What about that listing agent now? Because how does this affect this person who will say whatever they've got to say to their seller to get the listing, allow that house to be overpriced by $150,000 and it sits on the market for 200 days? What happens to that circumstance? Because every one of us who do this, Jerry, you come into this situation all the time. I see this all the time. Pace, all of the expired listings that sub-2 students are calling on. That's the reason.
Gobbling up deals.
That's the reason why they're available, because that agent got fired. 5,700 of them a day in the United States. What happens to that situation, Aaron?
Yeah, so I think that, again, the net result to the agent community is that the population shrinks, and it's not the quickest, the strongest, the smartest, or the fastest, according to Darwin. It's the ones that are the most adaptive to change.
Which is great.
So the ones that are skilled and know what they're doing will stay. But this provides, I think, there was a case to be made, bro. Like, how is it possible that somebody who's brand new, just got their license, is a rum-dum, will make the same amount of money as me, who's been doing this, who sold 2,000 homes? And like that doesn't happen anywhere else, guys, nowhere. So what I'm aware of is, like, I think what this does is this allows the marketplace to weed those people out, because now people will be more discerning with regards to like who they're choosing and who they're hiring. So again, like, I think the net positive to the consumer is they get a better quality agent. The net positive to our industry is our industry gets leveled up in terms of like,
which means more respect. I think over the last 10, 15 years, agents have lost a lot of respect. Part of that is from third parties like Open Door, OfferPad, these companies, right?
All talking shit.
Right.
Yep.
And even wholesalers talking shit.
Even wholesalers talking shit. So, and what I'm aware of too is that, like, I went on Ryan Pineda's podcast. First thing he said as soon as I sit down, he's like, "Oh, you're an agent?" I'm like, "Bro, like, do I sit down with you? I'm like, hey, Jim. Oh God, you guys are investors,
wholesalers,
wholesalers again. You guys always calling me making shitty offers. Like, no, I don't do that. You know what I'm saying? There's like no reason for it. But I think the other thing that's true is we find ourselves in a time right now. So I think that we're just like a scapegoat at the moment. So we find ourselves in a time where the difference between people who have and people who don't is getting ridiculous. Mm. And everybody's looking at agents with the meme and the cultural kind of, propaganda going around. They don't do anything and they make way too much money. So we're the bad guy at the moment.
So I listened to the All In podcast, and essentially what they're saying and predicting is, Aaron, you're going to go and you're going to prompt an AI platform with everything that you know. Every question that you've had to answer, every deal that you've done, you're going to put it all into this platform. Somebody's going to pay $100 for this thing, and they're going to be able to make offers and get really solid advice from a professional through AI.
You know what's hilarious to me about that is that we think we are thinking beings that feel. We are feeling beings that think. I've watched incredibly smart people make very stupid decisions emotionally.
Correct. Yes, sir.
So I was at a conference recently in Cabo, and they were like, "Oh, AI," and about like media. You know what I said? I did a interview about it. I'm like, listen, AI is cool, and right now what it can do is it can like take away some of the editing and stuff. Do you know what it can't take away? You still have to be talented. You still have to know what you're talking about. like we want magic answers to things, but they don't exist. So like,
but what if you prompted it?
Yeah, if I prompt it, okay, like the deep learning.
You prompt it and you sell this for $100 to every home buyer you can, and you make millions.
That would be fantastic. I think that's like a long time from now.
Yeah, they think in the next few years, though. That's how it's going to go.
I don't think that's a realistic expectation, because like what I'm aware of is humans, the reason why it's so difficult to pull out. Okay, so let's take like the medical community. What the medical community is. Doctors go to school for a very long time for pattern recognition. Mm-hmm. That's what they do for like a decade. So that way, when you come in and they see patterns, they're like, with 70, 80% probability, it's this, right? So I can see AI. AI does pattern recognition better.
Right.
So in the future, there will be an AI and a dog and one human. The human's job is so that they explain the soft skills. You still need a plan.
Yeah.
Here's how you do it. Here's it. The AI will do the pattern recognition. You know what the dog's for? So the human doesn't fuck with the AI. But this is so complicated. This is so entrenched in like psychology and like human behavior. It's going to be a long time before technology can do that. I think it eventually will, but I think the runway for that is definitely not a couple years. Like definitely not, because everybody was saying, "Oh, Zillow's they're gonna buy everybody's house and there's gonna be no agent." Yeah, they lost $750 million doing that. So I mean, eventually at some point that would be dope if I can like train people with my avatar, which I can kind of do now, and like put all my sales skills in it, and then you can talk to me. Like I can be your chatbot when you're making cold calls.
Right.
Great. There'll be a small portion of the people who make a lot of money doing that, but like, I don't know.
I think where AI is taking over is where people already know what they want. So, for example, I go to Circle K now, right? I have the automatic self-checkout. Have you guys been using these?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just put your stuff up there?
I look at the human, they're standing there at their little register, and then there's the AI checkout. I'm like, I'm sorry.
That's just so they could get you the smokes.
Well, here's what I think will happen. The AI, here's what it'll do. It'll say offers with these terms and conditions have a 90% probability of getting accepted. Then do you know what they're going to have to do when they do that? They're going to have to ask a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think? How should we change this or augment it? So like I think that will it serve a purpose, and will agents of the future use it as a tool? 1,000,000%. Will it replace them? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think
No, I'm just saying that'll definitely affect compensation though.
I think so. And I think the agents of the future, what'll happen is that they will they'll still make the same amount of money. They'll just get to it in various pieces.
Yep.
So I might make a bunch from like flat fee stuff. Then I make a bunch from like people who are full service. Then I might make some from an ancillary service that I'm involved in. Then I might make, you know what I mean? Like you'll get to it. That's what I mean by like agents of the future will think like business people, not salespeople just trying to do a deal.
Yeah, I agree. Look at Justin Bozak, by the way. Shout out Justin. Doing creative deals as an agent, wholesaling as an agent, does a lot of listings up there in New Jersey. He's an awesome guy. He says, you guys are ignoring the fact, he's not talking to us, obviously. He's talking to some people in the audience. You guys are ignoring the fact that weird people exist who are trying to operate AI. Each deal has 1,000 variables. Let me ask all of the panelists tonight. Have you ever seen a transaction that was identical to another transaction?
No.
I mean,
especially not as an agent, but not even as a buyer.
As
myself,
a wholesaler. I mean, think about
myself.
Creative finance, foreclosures. Think about all the weird things.
The
that
auction
going on.
business. Maybe the auction business. Buying.
There's still unique. There's still unique homes. Unique people lived in it. Unique situations. I mean, at the end of the day, that because people are unique. Every circumstance is going to be unique. It's just the reality of the nature of our species.
Yeah, I think there's some fundamental like gravity. So here, the fundamental gravity: price it right, offer compensation, it'll sell. Period. You could disappear off the planet, it'll still sell. Take no pictures, don't show up, it'll still sell. Okay, so that's gravity. But then circumstantial stuff that pops up.
Say that again, real quick. The two parts.
Yeah,
so that everybody knows.
Right.
Yeah, and explain when you say gravity, explain that.
Gravity is like, it's funny because like
natural force.
Yeah, try to argue with gravity and see how that works.
Right.
Yeah. Sit in a room and pontificate about like how I'm better than gravity and like go jump off a building and see how that works. So what I'm aware of is like the gravity of this business, which is really hard for people to like just like accept and acknowledge, is that if you price it right and offer compensation, it will sell, because 50 to 60% of who's going to bring a buyer, sometimes 70%, is going to be the community. So my job as an agent is to help somebody to recognize that I'm better to put it on the market than somebody else. Like that's really it. And really the skill that I possess is not only handling objections, overcoming them, but it's also helping people to price property right, because we are feeling beings that think. So I'll go over to Jerry's house. You know what Jerry said to me? It's worth $2 million. Comps are like 1.5. He's like, I don't care what they say. I don't even want to look at them. Don't even show them to me. You got to earn your money, buddy. Which the reality is you need to lower the damn price to 1.5 and it'll sell. That's the truth.
Right.
Right. So, but that's a skill. I can't sit at him and look at him and be like, dude, you're out of your mind.
So that answers my question: is that agent is going to disappear?
Yes.
Eventually that agent has to disappear. The agent who just says, hey, when a seller says to them, earn your money, overprice my house by $100,000, right? That agent is going to say, sir, ma'am, that's just not how the market works. We're in
a very skilled way helping them to self-discover. Because if I tell you, Jim, you'll argue with me.
Sure.
You will never argue with your own information.
You give them an analogy, you show them, you let them come to the conclusion themselves by the analogies and the situations that you present them.
Like Jedi, like these are not the drones you were looking for, like that kind of thing. You know
Well,
what I mean?
Jamil, a lot of times agents will take those listings so that they can put a sign with their name in the front yard, and also to send out postcards to the neighbors saying, "Hey, I sell in this area," and wait for buyers to come in. Right. If they have to then do a presentation to the buyers to work with them, and they don't have the skills, that's why they're gonna be weak.
I want to address a very amazing comment that is on the screen right now. It's one of my favorite comments of the night.
I love it.
It's so good. And he's
like benching like 1,000 pounds.
Oh yeah, of course he is. And I love it. He says, MLC legend. It's got to be something freaking dope. He asked earlier, how do we find real estate without cash or credit? MLC legend, go over to my YouTube channel. I have 4,000 YouTube videos. Type in Pace Morby, no cash or credit. Not only do I do videos and break them down on a whiteboard, I give you the settlement statements. I tell you the title companies I'm using. I give you the addresses of the house. I break down the math. Where did the deal come from? Go over there. This show today is actually about finding deals. How do I find deals? One of the ways to find deals is working with real estate agents. It's literally 80+% of Jamil Damji's business, one of the largest wholesalers in the country, on the screen in the upper right-hand corner. I know he looks like a retiree with his headphones in right now, not using technology, but I promise you this man knows what he's talking about, and he does work with real estate agents. So if you understand the real estate agent's plight, right, what they're going through, what they have to learn, you'll understand who to collaborate with and how to collaborate with them. This is an episode that is about finding deals by understanding what's going on with agents. Now, Landon Moore, one of the leaders in the subto community, his entire business model is working with agents. So if you understand real estate agents, you're going to understand how to make more money and how to communicate with them, more importantly, about their business. And also, let's say that you as a real estate investor are calling expired listings. You're like, I'm going to go direct to seller. Screw these agents. MLC Legend had a point about screw agents. Mm-hmm. I'm going to call expired listings. Well, you're going to run into a seller who says, no, I'm looking for another listing agent. And you say, well, I'm not a listing agent, nor will I ever be. It's not my business model. It's not my path. It's not my thing. But wouldn't you want to have an agent that you could refer to that seller, an agent that will refer you business in the future as well? My friend, understand how to collaborate with real estate agents is one of many, many popular ways to find more deals.
Yep. And using terms that he might understand, think of an agent as a spotter when you're doing your max.
He doesn't need a spotter when he's doing his max. He's Canadian. He drinks maple syrup right before he does his max.
Right from the trees, bro.
Right from the tree. You top it. Boom. Yeah, a lot of people, if you're working with real estate agents, say something in the comments. Let MLC Legends know that this is actually a super valuable podcast today. It's amazing. We have 700 people watching live on multiple channels. Thank you for everybody that's paying attention, loving on us. And they're saying, this is one of my favorite episodes in the last 6 months. But MLC Legend comes in here 30 minutes late and is like, yo, F this. Agents suck. Show me how to find a deal.
They're talking about retirees. What is this about?
Yes. Matt buys houses. He also says, this is interesting. Okay. Matt buys houses. He says, our brokerage got a memo. This is not actually his comment I wanted to address. His comment earlier was agents will get replaced just like gas station attendees, just like grocery clerks. I disagree. There's two different worlds here. Let's make sure we communicate the difference between the two worlds. Retail buyers and investors. Retail buyers, I have no clue how AI and a robot is going to be a therapist for a buyer walking through their largest purchase. Guys, you have either forgotten about how it felt when you bought your first house, or B, you have never bought your first house. That's it. There's no argument you can give me that would tell me that a buyer's agent is going to be replaced in the next 20, 30, or 40 years. Human beings are not meant to interact with robots. In fact, look what happened in the COVID days. You know that physical events in 2024 are at an all-time high.
Oh, sure.
Never in history have we had more convention centers booked out, more seminars booked out. When we put together Squat Up Summit, again, coming up October, or, next month, Orlando, April 23rd, 24th, 25th. When we put that together, we had to book it a year in advance. You want to know why? Because humans want to connect with humans. There's a vibration. There's a molecule transference. Jamil talks about this all the time. You remove that COVID. When COVID restrictions remove, everybody had to get out, started traveling, getting around each other. Guys, you're not getting humans away from how they were built and how God designed us.
Yes,
we are meant to be around each other and commune. Community is more important than human beings than anything else.
Amen.
Jerry, are you changing up your wholesaling strategies at all going into these new regulations, changing the way you're speaking to agents, anything along those lines?
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the big questions I saw in the comments a bunch of times is the double dip strategy. Is that going away? Which is dual agency, right? Where you go directly to, we use it as a strategy. So dual agency happens all the time in retail where, a buyer calls on a sign, they don't have an agent. First thing that listing agent says is, are you represented? No, you're not. Great. Let me show you the property. Here's a buyer's agency or whatever. And so dual agency happens all the time. We use it as a strategy to create a competitive advantage with those agents. How's that going to look different? We talked about it a little bit earlier. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that listing agent on a property I'm interested in making an offer on, to wholesale or otherwise. And I'm going to say to that listing agent, hey, I'm unrepresented. How do you want to work this? I really don't need the seller to offer compensation. I can pay my own compensation. And I'd like to create a relationship with you. Would you be my buyer's agent and represent me on the buyer side? Are you allowed to do that? Great. You are? Okay. Let's talk about it. What does that look like? What kind of commission do you like to see? Would you like to see to work with me as a buyer? And by the way, I'm aggressively buying in this market. I want to do 12 houses this year. Can you help me? Can you help me buy more houses? Can you call me when you get other listings like this one? And so again, I'm going to be taking that same approach I did before, which was, how do I get that agent, that listing agent, when they get a distressed property, they think, man, I wish I knew an investor to call about this. Jerry, he pays cash. He's easy to work with. He can close quickly. He doesn't need inspections and appraisals and financing. And he lets me represent him so I can actually earn some more commission in this transaction. That's the guy I want to call. Yeah. When I'm talking to the seller, I can say, hey, I've worked with this guy before. He doesn't need you to offer compensation or pay compensation. We've got that covered. I can do it, or he doesn't need it. And this guy's great to work with. I've done deals with him before. See what I mean? I'm still going to try to look at, how do I stand out in the marketplace when a great deal comes out and everybody and their brother sees it because it's public now. How do I have a leg up on everybody else in some way or another? And I'm going to be constantly looking for how to tweak that conversation and how to build that relationship with listing agents. And what it's probably going to look like, what I think it's going to look like is I'm going to pay the buyer's agent commission directly, and I'm going to offer it to the listing agent. And if they're willing to take that and work with me, then that's going to mean all the world to me with having that advantage in the market.
Awesome. Aaron, do you think that July 1st, we're going to see like a weird 90 days, a weird 6 months, a weird back half of the, you know what I mean? How does that affect people that are flipping houses right now, or have some deals, or have built up a lot of momentum in the first quarter of this year?
Yeah. What I tell people, what I've been telling all the team and everything, is that leaders anticipate and everybody else reacts. So we have 4 full months to anticipate.
Right.
And make the changes that we need to make and augment how we're presenting. But sure, I mean, as a whole, when you fundamentally change the way business is done, it's going to create a little hiccup where everybody's trying to figure out how to navigate that space. We went from 6 million to 4 million transactions in 2023. I think there's a very good probability we'll have about the same this year. I think rates are going to stay higher for longer than we like or want. I made that post 5 months ago, and everybody's like, no, they're going to drop 5 times in the first quarter. I'm like, okay. If you understand inflation, they won't. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think it'll be more the same of what we experienced, but you throw this in, it's going to be interesting. And I do think that a lot of agents, I mean, you've already seen that from last year because volume went down 19 to 30%, depending on geographic location. So a lot of agents left, and you'll see a culling of that. So prior to this happening, the last time we had this volume of transactions, we only had 990,000 real estate agents. It was in the 90s, and we have 1.5.
Yep.
It's like the Hunger Games, bro. So it's like way too many people that were already there anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think there'll be people pushing out, but there'll definitely be like everybody trying to figure out how to do it. So here's what I would suggest to everybody on this call. You ready? Be kind.
Mm-hmm.
Give people grace as they try to figure everything out, because everybody's doing the best they can under the given set of circumstances that they have, just trying to figure stuff out.
Jamil, what about cash buyers? What do you think?
I mean, I think
The flippers in town.
with how this affects them on July 1st.
July 1st, once that goes into effect, how do you think that
I mean, I
because it
think
always,
Are you
you know,
talking
about-
investors are kind of like, oh, the sky's going to
yeah.
fall. Is the sky falling a little
No.
bit? Is something
Investors-
happening here? Should I be on the sidelines and wait till this, settles out? What should I do?
no, I don't think that this has a fundamental effect on the way the buyers think that the market is going to react with respect to pricing. Look, at the end of the day, the cash buyer, the fix and flipper cares about what's going to happen to my retail price.
Yep.
Is my retail price going up or down? That's what I care about. Retail price going up or down. Overall, I think the sentiment right now is that people think it's going to get cheaper to buy a house.
Yep.
And so the cash buyer is going to think, oh my God, I'm going to have more people coming into the market, because the way the media has presented this, is that home buying has become cheaper. It's becoming cheaper. And it's not true. I know I see you shaking your head, Aaron, and I know that it's not true. But the way that the media presented this is that home buying is about to become cheaper. And because of that, the average Joe is going to rush into the market, which is going to create a little bit of a frenzy, which means that we're still going to have activity. And I think it's going to positively impact the fix and flippers. I think it's going to positively impact the business in the beginning with respect to inventory moving. I think that's the net result there. So I don't think cash buyers are going to have a negative impact.
Be more conservative on their
Pricing?
numbers, because they're like, well, all the signs are pointing to houses are going to be cheaper.
No. Buying a house is going to be cheaper.
I know.
That doesn't
but
mean that
the
houses are
consumer
gonna be
thinks that
cheaper.
houses are going to be cheaper.
Well, I mean that if
And
that's how they're reading it, then they shouldn't be buying a house, Brent.
Well, that and the elephant in the room that like nobody like addresses is the cost of money is still twice as high
Is what it was. Yeah.
before. It's double what it was before. So the real issue is that like, and it's a very nuanced conversation, because they're like, oh, it's going to affect first time home buyers. Well, I have a take on that as an agent who sells lots of property. If you have to beg, borrow, and steal and barely have enough money to bring to closing, and you can't fix the roof or anything, how is it bad that people have to be more financially sound to buy a house? I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. So the real issue is like the wall that we keep hitting against is money. The cost of money is still more than twice as high at what it was before. So everybody didn't start magically making money between 2020 and 2021. The payments were just cheaper. That's it. So I think we're going to still push up against that. Now, if that comes down, election, and even then it's not going to drop like from 7 to like 4. It's not going to happen. It might go like a quarter of a point. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like it's going to go in small increments. And I still think, because inflation's ridiculous, and the only way you get money out of a system is by restricting people's access to it. That's how that works. It's going to stay higher for longer.
Yep.
And what we would like. So that's the thing that I think we're going to push against. I still think it's vibrant, 4 million deals, 4.2 million, whatever it is. It's a lot of transactions. It's a lot of opportunities for people. Is it 6 million? No.
I think this is good for the real estate agent industry, just as a reputation is concerned. Meaning, agents that don't perform are typically the agents that do 1 or 2 transactions an entire year, right?
Mhm.
I call them the undercover agents. They have a full-time job and they're an agent. So they're not really an agent. They're an undercover agent. They're like a school teacher that does 2 transactions a year. They have no sales skills. They're not going to masterminds. They're not learning. They're not collaborating. They're just taking a listing, going to their broker and saying, "Hey, here we got a listing," right? Type of thing. Those agents are going to go away. Am I wrong on that, Aaron, or are they going to still exist?
No, they're going to completely go away. And again, remember that the industry, NAR, has an incentive to make it as easy as possible to become an agent because they need dues.
Right.
They were never incentivized to make it more difficult. So I've always said for a long time, Pace, I'm like, yo, if you do less than like 30 deals a year, you should be called a junior agent.
I
You can't
like
call
that idea.
yourself an actual agent until you
Can you
perform.
imagine what would happen?
You should have a minimum standard for sure.
Bro,
And then they get
agent.
compensated on a tier system, right? Because Aaron's right. How the heck is it that somebody who's cutting hair on the side, representing their buyer, and Aaron's the listing agent on the deal? How is it fair or even normal in the regular world that this guy or this lady makes the same amount of money that Aaron makes in the deal?
Which is the whole crux of the whole lawsuit and the whole issue. Which,
Yeah.
in fact, when you really look at it, the best surgeons, they make the most money. You can go to the other surgeon, but the best ones make the most. That's how it works. It's based on value. So I think that, this has been a long time coming. I mean, the whole model of trickling down from NAR to brokerages, the offices that I left before I came to EXP, I own part of an office. I sold it back. They had 130 agents. There were only 9 agents in the whole office that made more than 100 grand. 9 out of 130.
So you're looking at like
That's
6%.
a high performing brokerage.
Oh, it's super lame, dude.
Compared to most.
6 of them were like right at 100. Then there was like this one, and then me. The disparity is like enormous, and that's anywhere you go in the country.
Yep.
So it trickles down from like that, which is like, okay, let's just get a bunch of people in here so we could pay dues. Let's get a bunch of people in the brokerages in hopes they do 1 or 2 transactions instead of having 20 that are like super ninjas and do like 100 deals each. You know what I mean? So yeah, they're just going to have to rethink that. And the way that I think about this in first level consequences, second level consequences, third level consequences. So first level consequence, let's say from an agent perspective, is how do I need to be shifting and changing? You need different representation for different forms of compensation. You're going to have to list sellers and list buyers. You got to be a salesperson. Second level consequences are teams. Most big teams.
Say that one more time. Different representation for different representation for different compensation.
For different forms of compensation. That's exactly right. Yep. Now, the second level consequence are teams. Most teams, their whole model is very buyer heavy. They buy leads, pay per click. They give them to agents. That only works when you can expect a 2 or 3% commission. If you're not expecting a 2 or 3% commission anymore, that model doesn't work anymore, guys.
Wow.
So
Think about all the PPC companies.
What's going to happen to Zillow?
Say that. I lost that. What happens to that marketing style?
So second level consequence are teams.
Yeah.
Most mega teams around the country are very buyer heavy.
Yes.
With Zillow, right?
Yeah, either Zillow Flex, which that program is
that doesn't affect like a Jason Mitchell who's a B2B and more relationship like referral based, but this is like the big team guys. Those
teams who spend a lot of money on leads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the mega teams have a relationship with Zillow Flex, and they take 30 to 40% referral fees.
Yeah.
Okay. So that model by
Zillow
itself,
does.
Yeah. So that model by itself, and agents are only working for like basically referral fees because Zillow gets 30%, the team gets whatever they get. So the agent only gets a very small amount, right? So, but that model only functions economically, not rah, not pound on your chest, money. It only functions when you can expect a 2 or 3% commission.
Yep.
If you can no longer expect that, that becomes a problem.
Think about all the teams that'll get dismantled.
Well, what happens to Zillow? That's a huge income stream for them.
Zillow has a very interesting problem on their hands because their model also gets disrupted, which is that they take our data and sell it back to us as a lead source. But now that only works when agents can expect a 2 or 3% commission. If they're getting 30% of a flat rate, I could see a lot of agents being like, nope, I'm good. I'm not going to do that anymore, right? So that's the second level consequence. Third level consequence is brokerages. Most brokers by extension are very buyer heavy. Now they already operate on 5 to 10% profit margins. I was on a call with a guy, 1,000 agents, 4 offices, 5% profit margin. He showed me his numbers. The way that model works is they give away the brokerage to get to ancillary services, mortgage, title, escrow. So what'll happen is as time progresses and that revenue goes down, they will lose more. It'll actually become a loss leader, not 5%. They'll lose money.
Yep.
Take away from the profits and the other things. So they only have a few choices and options. 1, keep doing what you're doing and let that dwindle. Or 2, get rid of all of the expenses. The only way to get rid of all of the expenses is cloud-based brokerage. It's the only way. So I think it's an enormous opportunity. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man or woman is king or queen. If you could see some things that other people can't, it's incredibly advantageous. So if you see it, it's a huge opportunity for listing agents who are skilled. Huge opportunity for attraction if you're with a company that provides that sort of thing.
What I would also say, I know this is a really dumbed down version, but let's say I'm a brand new wholesaler and I'm watching this podcast today. 730 people tuning in. Thank you guys. If I'm doing agent outreach, right? There's a lot of wholesalers that are taught by Jamil or Jerry that are saying, hey, go reach out to agents. Primarily Jamil. We'll talk about go and do cold outreach to agents. You are now going to be primarily messaging agents who have stuck around in this model in a year from now. So in a year from now, think about it. It's going to weed out 30, 40% of the real estate agents that you don't want to do business with.
And
anyway.
wasted time, all the wasted
time, wasted text messages, wasted follow-up, wasted everything. It's going to weed it down to a much easier group of people to work with, the people that actually want to do deals, the people that are not at Starbucks and doing listings on the side. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying those people are going to be weeded out, right? And as a wholesaler saying, well, how does this affect me as a wholesaler? I don't see a single negative in this for wholesalers and real estate investors. Agreed. Jerry, do you agree with this, or do you see some negatives coming in for wholesalers?
I totally agree with that. In fact, I just did a call with an agent, and it became very apparent that the listing agent was an undercover agent. And I'm looking at this property, and my offer's like half of list price, and there's been no price reductions for a long time, long days on market. And so I tell the agent, it was like 110. I need to be at like 60. So I tell the agent, the listing agent, I say, hey, I need to be quite a bit under where you're listed right now. I just want you to know, like, I'm way off, but I'm cash and blah, blah, blah. She says, okay, well, what's your number? And I said, I need to be at like 60. And this is what she says to me. She says, I think the seller would probably take that. And my immediate response was, I'm just wondering here, why haven't you done any price reductions if the seller's number is it was just like I couldn't even believe I was having this conversation.
Because they're fishing for idiots, Jerry. They think that somebody's going to come around and possibly overpay and do that, but that's not how the market works.
But over time, you should start to drop the price, 5,000, 10,000, 20, you know what I mean? Like, and and I wish that was isolated. That's a normal conversation talking to agents that have no business being in business. Like, how did this person even get this listing to begin with? And so I think we're going to have a much more professional agency on the listing and the buyer side. And I'm excited to actually get to work with real professionals, not just someone who is a part-timer that somehow got a listing, and we can actually have high-level conversations and do real business. Like, I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's true. And I think that the vast majority of people, though, psychologically, like, it's this thing called the endowment effect, because it's mine, it's better, it's worth more. So psychologically, we all do that, guys. And, George Carlin has a thing. He's like, you ever notice that my stuff is stuff and your stuff is shit? That's how that works. And all humans do it. So, like, what I'm aware of is that sometimes listing agents, and to your point, Jerry, like, I think it'll elevate because they won't be able to do business anymore. But like, when somebody says to me, like, hey, we want to start hire, it's like, yeah, we could do that. Because I want to be clear, you're the boss. My job is to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. Can I share with you what would concern me for you and your family and how much you end up getting if you chose that approach? And then be quiet. And then we get into, I explain the pros and cons of starting high and coming down. Did you know that one of the first questions people ask me when they come inside of a property is how many days it's been on the market? Why do you think they ask me that, Jerry? Because there's a perceived value tied to time.
They're thinking something might be wrong. Yeah,
exactly. And do you think if they think something's wrong, what's the probability they're going to make us a full price offer?
Zero.
And you would like a full price offer, wouldn't you? You see what I'm saying? Like, I just explain the pros and cons, the benefits, the disadvantages, and I can help you to self-discover, yeah, this is an unrealistic expectation and we need to be like here, right? But that is a skill.
But that's the point. You're using really good presentation skills, really good logic.
You are incredible, Aaron. Yeah. Honestly, like, you're one of the masterful real estate agents I think I've ever been able to come in contact with. You are truly a gem, brother. I don't know how you don't have all the listings in America.
Well, I appreciate that, dude.
It's amazing what happens when you tell sellers the truth.
Yep.
And you know how to put it in a way that they can save face, knowing that they didn't get, steamrolled by some agent into just an easier listing. Well, let me explain to you exactly what's going to happen. And they have the end say.
Yeah,
so
and
they're selling themselves at the end of the day.
That's exactly
That's
right.
when you win.
Yeah, people are buying me. So if you notice, when I said that to Jerry, I wasn't like, hey, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Right.
Instead, what I said to him is, of course we can do that. You're the boss.
Yeah.
Which everybody likes to be the boss. My job is to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. Can I share with you what would concern me for you? Because notice, if I said, can I share with you what concerns me? You can give two shits what concerns me.
Right.
Can I share with you what concerns me for you and your family and how much you end up getting? Now you're like, what? I'm paying full attention. Right? But that, like, what's interesting is once you take this test to become a real estate agent, it has zero to do with actually making money.
Right.
But there's no like thing that you have to go through to learn that particular skill set. What this will do, what the marketplace will do, will weed out those who have that skill set and those who don't.
I love this question. Probably last question of the night as we've reached the end of the podcast. Guys, thanks for hanging out. Got a lot of people. Myron Briley just says, bro, this has been so much value tonight. I feel like I'm getting a $20,000 mastermind. Thank you, Myron. Love you, brother. Appreciate you. J.R. Cal says, does this mean that approaching agents with creative finance offers in the future would be more open to the topic? Guys, the hardest thing with creative finance is educating an agent.
Definitely.
That's the hardest thing. And this is why when you guys ever hear me talk critically about agents, it's that the agents that are going to be removed from this marketplace are the ones that I have to babysit. And so I, as a real estate investor, prefer to work direct to seller because I just skip the babysitting process. However, when I go do a deal with an agent who's educated and they understand how real estate works, oh my gosh, all day long, I would rather work with an agent on a creative finance deal. Why? Because the agent is going to go to the seller and go, yeah, I verified this. The title company says this. Yes, I've done these transactions before. Yes, this is legit. Shout out to Victoria. I've done, I think, a little over 20 creative finance deals with her in the last year. Shout out to her. North Carolina. Agent texts me every time she has a listing that has no equity or the seller wants too much money. Hey, will you give me a creative offer on this deal? 20 deals in a year off one agent. So I love working with agents, but what I don't love is educating agents on every single call. And so, yes, this will become an amplified success for creative finance offers and wholesaling, all of these things. Agents, guys, think about this. If every agent was like Monique Walker or Aaron Novello, wouldn't we as wholesalers just freaking have a blast all day long?
Yeah, it would be crazy.
Oh my gosh, we'd have so much freaking fun. And on the flip side of this coin, if every wholesaler was like Jerry Norton, Brent Daniels, and Jamil Damji, don't you think Aaron Novello and all his agents would be like, dude, I love working with wholesalers.
Oh, yeah.
But, I think that the regulations that are happening in wholesale are good. Mm-hmm. I think the regulations that are happening with NAR are good. It's a net positive for the people that are acquiring skills. Mm-hmm. And that's why we do this podcast.
Yep. Yes, sir. And I'm excited for Aaron's AI to come out and just
let's go.
Yes. Replace all buyers agents.
Yes.
That's right.
Great show, guys. Wow.
Great show. Yeah.
You want to take us home, brother?
Thank you, Aaron.
That's it. Incredible show. Guys, if you have not subscribed to Jerry Norton's YouTube channel, which is
I'm just gonna put it out there. Who wants to see Jerry Norton on every episode of Wholesale Hotline?
Can we snag him?
Who wants to see Jerry Norton on every episode of
you guys? I would love that.
I'm just saying this. I think look, who wants to see Jerry Norton on every episode of Wholesale Hotline? Who thinks Jerry Norton needs to be on Wholesale Hotline? Who did he? Oh, Jerry, what do you say?
You guys are awesome. I'd love to.
Let's go.
Let's go. There we go.
Yeah, let's get it.
Subscribe to Jamil.
That's awesome.
Aaron, do you have a YouTube? I assume. Yes.
Yeah, his YouTube's doing great. He's doing a great job on his YouTube channel.
Peace in mind. Go get it. Subscribe. We'll see you next week. Love you guys.
Love y'all.
Appreciate you guys.
Or just say squat up.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
What are you doing? I didn't say nothing.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Cool. I think we should use